Hello everyone and welcome to Monday's maths lesson. The aim of today's lesson is to divide a 1 or 2 digit number by 10. You'll achieve success in this lesson today if you can divide a 1 digit number by 10, you can divide a 2 digit number by 10, and you can identify digits as ones, tenths and hundreds. Let's have a look at a counting stick, and this is something you have been familiar with in class. If you get yourself a pen and a piece of paper, you can pause the video if you want, then you can have a go at filling out this number line. So draw the number stick in front of you and fill it out thinking about the value of the midpoint as a decimal number. So pause it now. The value of the midpoint as a decimal number is 0.5. And if we were counting up, our counting stick would have 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5 at our midpoint, 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, 0.9, and 1. Let's have a look at a counting stick, but it's counting in something different this time. What happens if my counting stick starts at 0 and it ends in 2? Pause the video and have a go at drawing this and see if you can work out what the midpoint is and what the decimals are in between. Pause it now. Let's have a look. So the midpoint of this counting stick would be 1 and it's counting in 0.2s. So we've got 0, 0.2, 0.4, 0.6, 0.8, then we've got 1 whole, then we've got 1.2, 1.4, 1.6, 1.8, and 2. Let's have a look at another counting stick. This counting stick starts at 0 and it ends in 3. Have a think what might be halfway between those and see what this counting stick is counting in. Pause your video now. So the midpoint of this counting stick is 1.5 and we are counting today in 0.3s. So it's 0.3, 0.6, 0.9, 1.2, 1.5, 1.8, 2.1, 2.4, 2.7 and 3. You should be able to recognise that pattern of numbers from counting in 3s, our 3 multiplication table. Let's have a look at a place value grid together. So if this column represents ones, what does the column with the question mark represent? How do you know? This column represents tens, and you can see that we have got our tens. So if we had a number in the ones column and we're timesing it by 10, it moves across. For example, if we had 1 and we were multiplying 1 by 10, we have 10. What does this column represent on my place value grid? It would represent hundreds, and you know that every time you move to the left on the place value grid, you are multiplying by 10 and multiplying by 10 again. So if I had 1 in my place value grid and I was multiplying by 10, it would end up as 10. And if I had 1 in my place value grid, but I was multiplying to 100, it would be 100. We move it one space across to the left on our place value grid. So as we move it to the left, like I said, we're multiplying by 10. We're making it 10 times bigger. If we move to the right, we're dividing by 10. We're making it 10 times smaller. So we've got the column representing the ones. We've got the column representing the tens, the column representing the hundreds, and we've got here our decimal point. We can see that tenths are to the right of the decimal point. They are not whole numbers, they are a part of a number. So we have got our tenths. So if, for example, I was thinking about my counting stick, when I was counting in decimals and I was counting in tenths, some of them I had 1.5, which was 1 5/10. The other side of the tenths, we have hundreds. So if you're dividing by 10, so if I had 1 divided by 10, I'm going to end up with 0.1. We will have a look at this a little bit further on in this presentation. What I would like you to do after I've explained this slide, when I tell you to pause it, have a go at drawing this number on the place value grid, and then see which each digit is worth. And then I would like you to have a go at dividing it by 10. If we're dividing, remember we're moving to the right on our place value grid, we're making our number smaller. So pause the video now. You should have written 165 on your place value grid, like so. If we're dividing it by 10, it's going to move across one space. If we're moving across one space and we're dividing it by 10, we end up with 16.5 because that 165 has been made 10 times smaller. It's moved across one space to the right on the place value grid. Let's do the same, but this time with a decimal number. You're going to be dividing it by 10. Again, it's going to move one space across. In a moment, I'm going to ask you to pause the video. I'd like you to put this number on this place value grid and then divide it by 10 by moving it across one space. So pause it now. Your 25.8 should look like this on your place value grid. If we're dividing it by 10, we are going to move it across one space. So it should be, instead of 25, it should be 2.58. We have another one, so 3.74. I'd like you to write this in and see what the value of each digit is. I'm not going to ask you to divide this one by 10. I'd like you to write it in and see what the value of each digit is. So pause the video now. We have here 3 ones, 7 tenths, and 4 hundredths. You can see where the decimal point goes. Let's have a look at dividing some single digit numbers by 10. You can pause the video and have a go at this one, thinking about if we're dividing by 10, which way are we moving? Have a go. If we're doing 6 divided by 10, we're going to move it across, so it's going to end up being 0.6. So the answer to 6 divided by 10 is 0.6. Here we have 3 divided by 10. Pause the video and have a go at this one. The 3 moves across one space, so it's 0.3. 3 tenths. Here I have a 2-digit number and we're going to divide it by 10. We need to move the 10s across one space to the right and the 1s across one space to the right to make the number 10 times smaller. So we are left with 2.7. So the answer is 2.7. The activity that I would like you to do today, which will be attached on Class Dojo, is a maze activity. If you are not confident, you can start with the 1 stars. If you are confident, with the 2 stars. And if you're super confident, the 3. It's a maze to work your way through dividing the number by 10. If you need to do anything, I would ask you to draw out a place value grid to draw the numbers on and move them across one space to the right. If you've got any questions, just let me know. I'm available on Dojo.